Hello, my name is Douglas Bloch. Welcome to the Depression Recovery Channel, where each week we talk about practical tools and coping strategies for healing from depression and anxiety. Today is Flashback Friday, a feature in which I republish one of my earlier videos you might not have seen that contains really important coping strategies that will help you attain a better mood. Now here's today's video. The title of today's video is Medications that are Prescribed for Insomnia. But before we start, of course, we have to do our regular ritual, which is to tell a joke to release all the endorphins in the brain, because laughter, after all, is good medicine. So I know a lot of couples around Portland. The other day, I actually go to 24-hour fitness, and one day I didn't see them, and I said to the man, "What's going on?" He said, "We quit our membership." I said, "Why you quit your membership?" To the gym. He said, "Well, our relationship wasn't working out." All right, so medications that are prescribed for insomnia. Well, this follows right on the heels of a video I did, an amazing video, not because of me, but because of the information I uncovered on the most important thing you can do for your health, which was to get good sleep. It turns out that sleep is so critical for all of our aspects of mental and physical well-being. And to get good sleep, I mentioned, and others have mentioned, we need to practice what's called good sleep hygiene. Going to bed at a regular time, getting up at a regular time, keeping your room cool and dark, practicing relaxation before bed, not watching YouTube right before you go to sleep, right? If you wake up in the middle of the night, don't lie in bed all the time, get up and do something productive around the house, etc. But despite all of this, people like myself who suffer from depression and anxiety, as you know, in both of those conditions, one of the primary symptoms is sleep disruption. So for many of us, good sleep can be hard to come by. So despite the best efforts of many of us, many of us with anxiety and depression have trouble either falling asleep or staying asleep. I fall in the latter category, although I have this gal in my support group says she just lies awake for hours before she can fall asleep. Well, in these cases, there are medications out there, some of them are very old, that have been used to treat insomnia. Now, before I continue, I want to say I'm not a doctor, I'm not a prescriber, and even if I were, I would not try to prescribe anything over the internet. If you feel that medications might be a good option for you, you need to go talk to your doctor, your psychiatrist, your nurse practitioner, let them know, and you guys can decide. All I'm doing is presenting information that you can look up on the internet, it's freely available, and my own personal experience. So just want to get that clear before we continue. The first class of medications that are often prescribed are called the Benzodiazepines. Now, many of you who have anxiety know about those medications, but they're also used for sleep. Klonopin, Ativan, Xanax, and Valium, which goes back a long way. I remember, God, I just had a flashback. My mother used to take 10 milligrams of Valium in the 50s and 60s and 70s before she went to sleep because she had a sleep disorder. Now, although these things do work, they've got two problems. One is you can become dependent upon them, and then when you try to get off, they create withdrawal symptoms. I learned this in my drug and alcohol training that there are only two medications that if you try to withdraw from, they can create seizures. One is alcohol, and the other is the benzos, like Klonopin. So if you're on a benzo and you want to taper, boy, you have to do it under supervision. I remember one of my first group members went into a local treatment center for 6 months, and that's how long it took her to taper from her Klonopin. And they also create tolerance, which means sometimes you need more and more, to get the same effects. So you might start off with a half a milligram of Klonopin. A year later, you might be up to 3 milligrams. So this is why doctors say, correctly so, that these should only be used short term. The next class of medications used to treat insomnia, prescribed by doctors, are called the antidepressants. Now, of course, I don't need to tell you what those are, right? Those of us who are depressed have probably tried some of them. But there are three that seem to be used for sleep. One is called trazodone, also known as Desiril, that's its trade name, Remeron, and amitriptyline. Now, these medications, of course, were not originally prescribed for sleep. They were antidepressants, but they always had these side effects of excessive drowsiness, which was considered a nuisance until one psychiatrist got the bright idea and said, wow, if these drugs make people drowsy, maybe they could be used before sleep, and maybe they would help people fall asleep. And in fact, it worked. Now, typically, these medications are used in much lower doses than they would be used if they were prescribed for depression. For example, when I was on amitriptyline many years ago during my major depressive episode, I think I was taking 250 milligrams a day. The range is between 150 and 300. However, if a psychiatrist were to prescribe that for someone with simple insomnia, they would start at 25, a much lower dose. And as a matter of fact, as I got better, I cut my dose down more and more and more. And now I'm only taking 10 milligrams a night for sleep. You know, some people would consider that a microdose, but I notice the difference when I don't take it. The other good thing about these antidepressants is they're not habit forming, and you don't develop dependence. So, for example, I've been taking, I think, 10 milligrams of amitriptyline for 15 years. And one time I went on a trip, I forgot to take them and had to go 5 or 6 days, no problem, no withdrawal symptoms. When I came back, I simply started them up again. So that's a really good thing. And one of the reasons why I think that these medications should be considered between you and your doctor. Now there's a fourth antidepressant that has been used for insomnia, which quite frankly I hadn't heard of until yesterday when I saw my nurse practitioner. Now how synchronistic is that? It's called Doxepin, Doxepin. And like amitriptyline, it's a tricyclic antidepressant, which means it's been around for quite some time. But the FDA has actually approved this for the treatment of sleep problems. Actually, you look it up and that's what it's used for. So it must be very, very successful in how it works. It's long acting, which means if you take it, they expect you to sleep 7 to 8 hours, which is great. However, don't take it unless you're going to sleep 7 to 8 hours, says the packaging, because let's say you took it at 2 a.m. and then you got up at 7 a.m. to go to work. Because then if you tried to drive that morning, you'd be way too drowsy and you would risk accidents. In general, they say don't drive after taking any of these drowsy creating drugs, which is common sense. Finally, there's a class of drugs, medications called sedatives or hypnotics. These depress the nervous system, central nervous system, and they go by names like Ambien, Lunesta, and Sonata. By the way, have you noticed that there are no Z's in those names, like Zoloft and Prozac and Effexor, right? I don't know, Lunesta, Sonata, they sound very restful, don't they? I'm sure the people who marketed those names were thinking of that. Anyway, these are used for sleep. Like the benzos, they can become habit-forming, only short-term use, say the doctors. And for people like me, okay, so when you think of insomnia, what do you think of? People who can't go to sleep. Well, for people like myself and many other people, we can get to sleep just fine. It's that we wake up at 2 in the morning and can't get back to sleep. And so there's a medication called Ambien CR, which is what I think it must mean Ambien controlled release, which lasts 7 to 8 hours, which I take, which does allow you to sleep through the night. Now, I got my prescription refilled yesterday by my nurse practitioner, as I said, and he said, Doug, the FDA warns against driving anything or driving a car within 12 hours after you take this medication. So do not drive 12 hours when you take it. Well, after you take it. So I usually go to bed 11 p.m., 11 a.m. Nope, I don't leave my house until noon. I'm safe. But again, a warning that on these long-acting sleep aids, you should make sure that in the morning, if you're still drowsy, not to drive or, they say, operate any dangerous machinery. A final note, you've probably heard that with the medication Ambien, people can have what are called blackouts, where they wake up in the middle of the night, they sleepwalk, they may go downstairs and cook a meal or vacuum the floor, or maybe even take the car out for a leisurely drive, and they have no recollection that they did this. Well, obviously this can be dangerous. So my psychiatrist said to me when he first prescribed the drug, here's a way, Doug, you can cut down the odds of that happening. Get ready for bed, do your routines, turn out the lights, go into the covers, and then reach for the half of an Ambien, put it under your tongue and let it dissolve while you're lying there with your eyes closed, and that should prevent any sleepwalking. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these hypnotic sedatives like Ambien, Lunesta, Sonata, the manufacturers say only for short-term use. Although I've known 2 people who've been on Ambien for years. I don't know how they do it. And myself, I've been taking it for a year, Ambien, but only intermittently. I take it about maybe once a week max, Whenever I feel anxious or really wound up that night and I can't get to sleep, I say, okay, I give up and I reach for my half a pill. But fortunately, I'm able to, cut that to once a week or 4 times a month, and that doesn't seem to create any problems. Finally, the last category of sleep aids I want to talk about are the over-the-counter sleep aids, such as Benadryl. Most of these are antihistamines, which cause drowsiness and maybe make you really tired the next morning. The FDA has approved these to be over-the-counter, so they obviously deem them safe enough to be used in that way. And I did try Benadryl many years ago when I first had sleep problems, and my doctor did warn me not to combine it with other cold or allergy medications because they also take or consist of antihistamines, and taking 2 at the same time could be too much. So in conclusion, for those of us who have problems with sleep, I think, 100 million Americans have sleep disorders. I guess that's a lot, right? There are sleep medications that can be useful in helping us either fall asleep or stay asleep. If you think you'd like to try that route, remember to go with a trained doctor, hopefully a psychiatrist or a mental health psychiatric nurse practitioner, in order to determine which medication you should take, if any, its dosage, and how long you should take it. This has been Douglas Bloch. I hope you found the information on this Flashback Friday video helpful. If so, please give it a like, as likes draw more and more people to this channel and hopefully some more subscribers. You can also leave your comments in the comments section or email me, douglasbloch@gmail.com. If you do want to subscribe to this channel, click on my photo in the closing credits. You'll be taken to my subscribe page. And if you click on the bell to the right, you'll be notified every time I do a new video or live chat. And if you want to contribute to this channel and become a patron, simply click on the Patreon image. You'll be taken to my crowdfunding site. And until next video, I wish you the best in your mental health recovery. Thank you so much.